Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Laura, and in today's video I want to discuss these principles that I've discovered being a computer science student that I've aptly named the 14 principles of being a computer science student. Whether you're an incoming computer science student or already a current one, these might be some helpful reminders or also some learnings that you can take with you along the way. Let's hop right in. 1. What you learn in school is not equivalent to what you'll be doing on the job or in industry. A lot of what you'll be learning in school may not seem super applicable, and that's usually pretty true for the most part. For example, learning about functional programming may not be the most applicable if you're just planning to gun it as a software engineer or, even a product manager. However, as a software engineer, you may actually find, for example, that the way you think about functional programming can influence the way that you think about imperative programming too. I think in general, though, having a wide knowledge base is going to be better than not taking those classes in the first place, because you'll either be exposed to a new language or learn how to solve problems in new ways that you might not know of otherwise. But mileage may vary, and maybe your school just has a better program in software engineering than mine does, which in that case, great for you. 2. Start assignments early and commit at least an hour to reading through the description and other provided instructions.
One piece of advice, don't read anything. If you don't read it, it can't harm you.
Starting my assignments early is probably the one thing that has saved me the most over the past couple of years. When I start an assignment early, it gives me a couple of things. 1, it gives me the advantage of already having read the assignment and having a general idea of what I need to do. And 2, it gives me some assurance that even if I'm procrastinating a little bit, I have at least started some portion of the assignment and it won't all be backloaded for me. Reading the description carefully helps me realize how I can chunk an assignment up into different parts, and also when it makes sense to have a good stopping point and when it shouldn't. I know that for a lot of us, context switching is a huge waste of time though, so having an adequate stopping point that makes it easy for you to jump back in is going to be really impactful. When I'm moving back into assignment or starting an assignment for the first time, it can take me anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half to even 3 hours if I'm really struggling to get into the flow of understanding what's going on and how I want to structure my program, for example. Now, I've also placed a lot of emphasis onto simply reading the instructions because 9 times out of 10, whatever question you're going to ask is probably going to be solved just by reading the README or the repo description or what have you. Maybe there are just a ton of people who are a lot better at reading and processing information than me. 3. Like many things, learning a new programming language, or especially learning to code for the first time, is going to be a huge struggle, but that's okay. I came into my computer science major with absolutely zero idea how to code. For reference, there are 2 software engineers in my family. However, it never dawned on me, or was never really interesting to me, to actually pick up coding or give coding a try. I've always been fluent around computers though. I've grown up using computers all my life basically as a Zoomer, but when it came to actually speaking a language that the computer can understand, that was really beyond me for the first year or so of my degree. Even though I understood bits and pieces of coding or a programming language, when it actually came down to implement this feature on this program, that was when I really started to get stuck. However, I promise that the more practice you have under your belt, the better you'll get. I know that it can be very arduous to learn how to code, especially for the first time, and trust me, those are not super fun memories for me. Over time, you'll accumulate a bunch of different knowledges. You'll know syntax for Python versus syntax for JavaScript. You'll also find yourself scouring a lot of documentation, and over time, you'll get more and more familiar with how to read technical documentation, especially if you have seen it in the past and try to decipher the weird parameters that a function may be accepting from that library that you just really could never figure out. With respect to my journey programming, and perhaps many of yours as well, I thought that this quote from C.S. Lewis is very applicable. Isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different? I can safely say that over the past 3 years, my fluency with knowing how to write a JavaScript program, for example, or simply just writing a single function JavaScript is vastly improved compared to where I was 3 years ago, where I had no idea how to write a for loop in Python. And if that is you right now, then you have a huge path ahead of you, and I'm really excited to see where you grow and take your career. 4. Working with a team on a school group project is almost nothing like working on a real engineering or product team. As much as most schools like to say that
group projects prepare you for the real world,
I've usually just found almost the exact opposite situation happening. In my experience with school group projects, it's really been hit or miss. Sometimes I'll vibe really well with my team and everything is great, and other times it'll be just me sticking out on a project and crossing my fingers hoping that everything goes well in the end. On a real engineering team though, you will have a manager with actual authority and software engineering experience or product experience to assign everyone tasks on the team. In general, there's just a lot more support for the work that you're doing in a real engineering team, as well as people that generally care about supporting your career and your learning trajectory, not just people trying to pass a class and get that grade. In a real engineering team though, you'll also have set up methods of getting your code reviewed, coming up with new features to work on, and pushing your code into production. Whereas again, with team projects, it can be kind of haphazard and whatever works, works. 5, being underqualified doesn't matter. Apply for that job anyways. Every time I film, I swear to God, these cars are everywhere. After sifting through hundreds of applications though, I can safely say that as a student, a lot of these required qualifications or expected skills really aren't that expected or required of you. When you've become somewhat fluent with programming and the general field of computer science, you'll quickly learn that it's not too difficult to just pick up a new language or a new framework, especially if you know one that is adjacent to that particular language or framework. For example, if a lot of postings are asking for explicit React experience, but you know JavaScript, it really won't be that difficult to just pick up React, whatever the next popular front-end framework may be. If you don't apply and you're underqualified, then you have a 0% chance of getting an interview and also a 0% chance of getting that job. Besides, when most job applications will only take you 15 to 30 seconds to fill out, it really doesn't hurt to just throw your resume in and cross another application off your list. Another quote that I like to bring up is by Susie Chasm. She says, "Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will." 6. You're a computer science major, not a leetcode major. The common advice being floated around now on r/career questions, r/CS majors, what have you, is go to leetcode and you'll be fine. Which I have no qualms with, and I recognize that a lot of interview systems are set up around leetcoding, and that is probably better than the old brain teaser system that they used to have in place. If you're new to the whole field of leetcoding though, I definitely can resonate with you and say that it definitely feels intimidating to just step into the whole leetcode arena and try to be a leetcode god. A lot of the assignments that you're challenged with in school are just fundamentally different from the kind of thinking that you need to be good at leetcoding. 2 classes that you frequently hear are very helpful for leetcoding though are going to be your data structures class and your algorithms class. Your data structures class is going to be useful because it'll cover the basics of what you need to know for what container to use when, and also the time complexity of different operations when applied to a particular container. For example, this can help you understand the trade-offs between using an array and using a linked list. In your algorithms class, you'll probably cover a lot of the common algorithms that are used over and over again as a pattern for different leetcode questions. This can be simple sorting algorithms such as merge sort, all the way to figuring out how to traverse a graph or a tree using different kinds of algorithms. There are plenty of ways to build out your strength in leetcoding over time, and you don't have to be cramming leetcode 8 hours a day for the next interview. I do plan on releasing a video sometime late May or June discussing how you can set yourself up for upcoming interviews and figure out how to best optimize your leetcode study sessions. 7. There are a lot of career paths out there besides software engineering. This is a pretty big topic and you can check out my separate video here. But again, I just want to hark on the fact that if you don't want to go into software engineering and you don't want to be programming for the rest of your life, then you don't have to. There are plenty of other jobs out there besides software engineering, and I would encourage you to just take a look and explore if there are other fields adjacent to software engineering that you'd be interested in. There are also jobs that don't require any sorts of coding, such as being a product manager or a UX designer. 8. There will always be people better than you, so there's really no point to even trying to compare yourself. I like to think of comparison as being the fast track of how you can ruin all your dreams in one quick, easy step. Yes, there will always be people better than you, and there will always be people worse than you as well. And that'll happen all around you in all different kinds of subjects. Everyone is going to be a subject matter expert on their own thing, and you can also find that own thing that you really enjoy and you want to learn more about. However, to an extent, basically everyone starts from zero. They don't just magically get that knowledge, they are practicing, putting in effort, and doing the most that they can to advance themselves. A lot of the times you don't see that behind the scenes effort where they've read tons and tons of documentation or different kinds of books to help them garner that knowledge. All you see outwardly is them sitting there being able to solve this hard LeetCode question in 20 seconds. You always have time to improve yourself, especially your weaknesses. As the good old philosopher Socrates said, smart people learn from everything and everyone, average people from their experiences, stupid people already have all the answers. If there is someone that you know that is way better than you at software engineering or being a product manager, then use it as an opportunity to learn from them. 9. Yes, there's a lot of money in the computer science field, but you'll absolutely hate it if you join just for the money. I won't preach about this too much because I understand that everyone has different motivations and not everyone has the luxury to do something that they love. I would urge you to consider though that at some extent you should enjoy the concept of computer science or programming or product managing, whatever it may be. You're going to be here for 10 to 15 years, maybe 5 if you're lucky and you land this amazing startup job that IPOs and blows up. That's going to be a heck of a long time for you to be stuck doing something that you absolutely detest and have no passion for. Again, like I mentioned, software engineering may not be your cup of tea, and that's okay. There are other fields in computer science that you can explore and branch out to. 10. It's okay to not be working on side projects 24/7 or to not have the next Google as your side project. A lot of students are encouraged to work on side projects and do new and interesting things to help boost up their resume. I do want to remind you though that there are more things out there than just working on school and side projects and applying for internship. Maybe you might just get your next big idea on your next outside walk. Also, a lot of people's side projects aren't going to be shiny and new. They can be evolutions on previous projects. They can be ways that you stepped up a school project and transformed it into something entirely new, or they could be a hackathon project. All these things are equally as valid, and as long as you can show some sort of passion behind it and your interest and involvement, then that'll be a great project for you to talk about and highlight on your resume. 11. Find time to move your body. As computer science students, I know that we can be really prone to just sitting inactive for 3 to 4 to 6 hours a day just because we've been working on that one assignment all day long. Moving around, going for a walk can dramatically reduce the amount of stress you're feeling if you have an upcoming project deadline, or also just help refresh and reset your mental capacity. All the physical benefits of being active aside, I generally just find that I'm really craving that physical exercise after sitting for a long day. 12. You will never know everything. There is a constant revolving door of new technologies, languages, and frameworks that you're going to have to learn. That's kind of just how the software industry works, is that there are going to be tons of different tools and resources that come online that are going to beat their competitors or gain a lot of traction suddenly. For you as a computer scientist, you're just going to have to be on your feet and understand that there is a lot of learning ahead of you in this field, which will be great. While it may not always be the most fun to learn a new tool or language, on the plus side, you'll have that new skill gained and it'll look really nice and shiny on your resume when you're looking for your next job. I also think though that that's one of the beauties of being in the software industry is that things are constantly changing and you have to stay on your feet. I personally enjoy the process of learning, but I know that that's not for everyone. 13. Just because you start somewhere doesn't mean you're destined to stay there. It doesn't matter if your first internship or new grad job isn't going to be that amazing FANG job that you've always wished for. As a student, this is going to be your number one time to build up skills and gain that experience that you need to launch yourself into a good career. There are hundreds of thousands of software engineering jobs out there alone, and not every one of them is going to fit into your FANG company, which is okay. I also want to validate that not everyone wants to go work at a FANG company. I ended up attending my public state school because it was the most affordable option, even though it wasn't going to be the best program in the whole entire world. And I recognize that, but I feel like I took advantage of the resources that were around me and used that to help myself stand out. In the end, everything worked out really well, and I'm super fortunate that things played out the way that it did. Even if you are starting off on the wrong foot or you're not starting off where you wanted to be, you have a lot of power to grow and educate yourself to get to where you want to be. Lastly is 14. Pair programming or working through a problem with someone is super helpful and also definitely applicable in the real world. Pair programming isn't the most utilized in schools, but I think that pair programming is really helpful and was one of the best ways that I learned during my first internship. At my first internship, which was in person, I found it really helpful to just go into a meeting room or conference room with the other interns on my team and walk through the pseudocode and write out the functions that I was working on, as well as where I was getting stuck. Having a second or even third pair of eyes to look at that code really helped me understand where my intuition was going wrong and coming up with different solutions to fix it and figuring out which one was going to be the best way. Similarly, I think this is a great tactic if you're struggling with a pickup programming assignment and you do have a friend that is available to help you out a little bit. In industry, you'll find that this is pretty common where engineers are constantly helping each other out and also providing suggestions and fixes for what may be broken. It's pretty hard to say that you'll figure it out after 8 hours of staring at the same line of code unless you either get some sleep or get a second pair of fresh eyes on the problem. That's what I have on the fundamentals of being a computer science student. If you're an incoming student or you have anything else to add, please leave them in the comments down below and I'd love to hear from you. I actually got my first piece of fan mail this previous weekend and I was really excited to hear from that person and hearing how my videos have helped them. So thank you all so much for watching my videos. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll see you all next week for a new one. Bye.
So if I never touch you